testimony and hoped that you can grab a little piece of their testimony and carry it on with you. And hopefully it becomes something beautiful at the end of their journey, at the end of your journey. And tonight we have on Saran Chamberlain. Without further ado, here she is, Saran. Hey, Saran, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
Hey, how is it over there in Australia?
It's not too bad. It's actually quite nice, warm. It's only about 10:30 here though, but so it's just the start of my day.
There you
But
go.
yeah, it's been cold. It's good. It's
Yeah,
lovely.
nice.
Yeah.
And where at in Australia do you live?
So I'm in South Australia in Adelaide, in the quieter part of Australia. So yeah.
Yeah. So I heard, I don't remember which state it was, but it was one of the southern states that
Victoria.
was it Victoria that they totally like locked down
Yeah.
and they had like
Yeah.
0 cases. We can't say what it's called because then they take the video right off YouTube.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we'll call it Rona or something like that. So I
Yeah.
heard that the southern state, that most southern state, has 0 cases. Is that still true?
That's Tassie. Yeah. Yeah. Tasmania.
Yeah.
I'd say, I think.
Yeah. So they have 0 cases because they were like nobody's coming in, nobody's coming out.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They complete lockdown. Yep.
That's crazy. So how are you guys doing with all that over there?
We've got 2 here. So, but and that's from overseas, I think. But yeah, we're locked down as well, as opposed to the eastern states. So yeah, we're still living fairly good lives. We can get out and about. Don't have to wear face masks or anything. So yeah, we're kind of lucky where we are.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now, if you want to go ahead and tell the community who Saran is.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm now 45. I was 37 when I had the stroke. I was I was healthy, and going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week, working really hard. And one morning, basically, I got up, started tidying up my daughter's bedroom. My left arm shook, and then I stood up, and my left leg went from under me. They thought I'd had a migraine for about 2 days. When I was I went into hospital. I had the thrombolysis just in case, which is a blood thinning sort of drug. And they took a couple of CAT scans, but the MRI actually showed that I had a stroke. So I was completely paralysed on my left, but fairly stubborn. So even though I couldn't feel things as soon as I could, I sort of started moving, and I was a bit of a pain in the for hospital. But yeah, but I've worked really hard to get where I am today. So yeah.
Good to go. So let's talk a little bit about so what happened that particular. So you said that you were fairly healthy, right?
I was very healthy. Yep.
Yeah, and you were working out regularly, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you said you woke up.
Bam.
You woke up that morning.
I was fine that morning. Yeah, and I leant over, and a blood clot got stuck. That affected mainly my sensory, premotor, and motor cortex of my left arm and hand.
So the blood clot obviously got caught in your brain, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it did.
And did they say the size of the blood clot or whatever?
No, but basically the damage had been done by the time I got to the hospital, so there wasn't any way that they could have, made it any better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then who were you able to call for help, or you had one of your kids call for help? Do you remember exactly?
I remember everything. Yeah. I couldn't get words out. And luckily my son was just in the room opposite my daughter's bedroom. So his name's Hayden. So I was just yelling out sort of, hey, and I could hear him in his bedroom. He was with a mate, and I could hear his mate going, "Your mum wants you," and Hayden's like, "Yeah, no." And I'm thinking, please, please come. This isn't me coming and telling you off. And so he finally came in, saw that I was on the floor, and got my partner, and he's run in, and he's fairly hard, and he kind of went, "You look like you've had a stroke," and then called the ambulance, and yeah, yeah. So the ambulance actually wanted to keep David on the phone. He's like, "Look, I've got 3 kids. I've got a dog who's a runner, so I need to get all of that sorted before you guys come into the house." So no, I'm not staying on the phone, and hung up.
Right,
So
right,
the
right,
house was a bit of chaos. So
right. Yeah,
mm,
especially, you said the kids were 10, 3, and
8, yeah,
10, 8, and 3. Yeah,
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 that's right.
yeah. You got a
Mm.
3-year-old running around, of course, and then the dog.
Yeah, yeah, and the dog was a runner. So we had to lock him in one, or they had locked in one of the bedrooms, and I could hear him scratching away. But yeah, and then we had to clear the hallway because having 3 kids was a bit of a mess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, do you remember the ambulance ride to the hospital?
I do. The guy, I was so good. I still remember him, and he made me feel so calm, and like he kept my focus just on him. We only live about 2 minutes out of town, so we were at the hospital fairly quickly. So I remember all of that. I remember coming into the hospital, and then sort of telling me that they're going to give me a thrombolysis, and but by
The
then I was really, really tired.
So the
Um,
the thrombolytis is the clot buster, right?
Clotbuster, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but they have to sort of monitor you for 24 hours every hour because, of course, that could cause a bleed. So I had a beautiful nurse. I think her name was Emma, actually. She was a beautiful nurse, and she stayed with me, sort of, came to me every hour and asked me who the Prime Minister was, where was I, what day was it, etc., so to make sure that I was still conscious. So, yeah, and I still kept all of that. I was still fine. It was more physically that I was affected. So,
Yeah. So
mm,
during the whole time, like, um, in the ambulance, on the floor, in the ambulance, at the
in the
hospital,
hospital. Yep,
or in the hospital, were your was your affected side like
it's just
immediately
all
hit,
paralysed. Yep,
or
yep,
was it
yep.
like progressively getting worse, or
No, it was just all my left. All my left went in the bedroom, and I couldn't get up. I couldn't move anything. I couldn't feel anything because when it first happened, my arm shook and I touched it and I couldn't feel it. And I thought, that's weird. And then I stood up and my leg went from under me. So, and then obviously I did have the face droop on the left. And yeah, so it was immediate.
wow, wow. Now,
Mm.
so how long exactly were you in the hospital from that?
So they said I'd be in the hospital for a month and rehab for 3 months. But I ended up being in hospital for 8 days and rehab for 3 weeks. Um, Probably because they knew they couldn't keep me in. I came out and I still had a stick and still needed a lot of therapy, but being in hospital was not something that I wanted, or probably they didn't want either.
So what? I mean, because that's pretty uncommon, especially for myself
Yeah,
and for
yeah,
other people that I have interviewed.
mm,
That's a pretty quick, I guess, for lack of a better term, that's a pretty quick turnaround. Uh,
yeah.
8 days in the hospital. What do you attribute that to?
I so on After the 24 hours, I remember sort of laying there and I said to my partner, I think I can move my leg. And he went, all right, go on. And so I said, I reckon I could crawl around on the bed because I wasn't allowed to move off the bed until the doctors had come and it was a weekend. So I started crawling around the bed with one arm and ended up at the other end with my ass up in the air and my head down, and the nurse came in and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm bored, like, and I can't just stay in here." And so she ended up getting me one of those trapeze things so that I could at least hold myself up and that kind of thing. So I was determined to, get moving. I wasn't willing to sort of sit there and just kind of be, sort of be a paralyzed kind of vegetable. I wasn't accepting it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Way to go. I love it. I
Mm,
love it.
mm,
So
yeah.
when you went to rehab, what
Yep.
physical state would you say that you were in when you started rehab?
Yeah, I wasn't great. I ended up leaving the hospital with a quad stick, and my
That's
version of
that's actually
walking.
that's actually pretty good to
Yeah, it was.
rehab. Yeah,
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
stick, yeah.
But when I got to rehab, they took the quad stick away because they said that I wouldn't learn to walk um, properly on my own if I had a quad stick. So they were really strict, which is what I attribute to basically, my improvement.
Hmm.
So they said I wasn't allowed to leave the room without sort of my physio, which I did, of course, and so I kept getting caught. Um, but yeah, they just were really strict with me, making sure that my movements were quality rather than quantity,
Yeah.
because I was so young. So I went to a private rehab, and whilst they didn't have experience with young stroke, they knew that obviously with young stroke, the aim wasn't to just sort of get me out. The aim was to, try and get me as much to, that quality as much as possible, which, they managed to do, but they could only do so much. So, they
Right.
sort of reached that 3 weeks, and she sort of said, I can't do much else. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm not going anywhere else. So I was there as an outpatient for a lot longer than they usually would have had. But yeah,
Right.
it was good.
So when they took the four-prong cane away,
Quad stick. Yep.
yeah, the quad stick.
Yep.
So what did they do? They put you on the parallel bars or
So they would. So I had to. I would only be allowed to walk, say, for the first couple of days, in my room or to the desk, and then they'd wheelchair me to physio. Yeah, and then I would have to. They sort of put me on the reformer. They put me on the bike to strengthen up my legs, and then they would. They'd have me walking in the pool with a weight on my leg because I didn't really have control over it. So it was baby steps.
Mhm.
Basically, which it was, it was learning how to walk again
Yeah,
as though I was a baby. So yeah.
very good, very good. And then what
Hmm.
about your speech? Was that impacted at all?
I felt that my speech wasn't the same. I didn't have aphasia, but I certainly felt as though my voice had changed, and it had because of my muscles in my throat. So I still have problems now. If I get tired, I get croaky. But people didn't recognise it, but I did. So I went to a speechy for a little while, just to try and work out my breathing and try and sort of keep the muscles in my left side, which I'm still sort of struggling with. But that's it's good for me at the moment, because I'm sort of working on everything else. But I'd like to try and get some muscles back in the throat. But generally, my speech is pretty good,
Good to go. Good to
I
go.
think. Mm.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what about your left arm and your left hand?
So my left arm and my left hand, I still don't have anything in it. So I don't have any sensation. I don't have any proprioception. So I've had to sort of learn to make sure that I don't walk into doors. Um, I've learned how to move it though, or learn how to move my arm based on the muscles that you use to move them. So I know, for example, to lift up, to try and actually sort of lift my wrist. This is obviously my good hand. To lift my wrist is a tricep movement. And so I do a lot of visualization where I can feel it in my right, and then I'll try and sort of feel it in my left. So it usually has to sort of start in my stomach and build up to my shoulder and then through to my arm. But it's not. But I don't actually feel it. I just feel the heat of the muscle moving.
Huh.
So it's a weird kind of movement. I can move it, but I can't feel it.
Right. That's super
Yeah.
interesting. Super
Mm,
interesting. And
yeah.
yeah, and so you said that there's none of this in your hands at all whatsoever,
Nothing.
right?
And so, no. So I've had Botox in my hands so that I can make sure that my tendons stay loose so that I don't have a lot of spasticity in my hand. Um, and generally, but I can't, I can feel hot and cold on my fingers, but that's about it. I can't move them. I can have them stretched out, but I can't do it myself. So,
So,
mm,
and when you got your Botox,
yeah,
I know that a lot of people in our community, they either ask about it, ask if it works, ask
mm,
if they should get it, or they have gotten it.
yeah.
So, what do you have to say on that?
I'd say, I've had a physio who had hated the idea of Botox because she looked at it as in, it's just like cutting part of your ribs off. You can't have a part of your body that, has been paralyzed on purpose. But because of my lack of movement in there and lack of sensation, the next best thing is to make sure that I keep it long so that those muscles don't shorten. And so that, one day, if and when I can get some sort of movement, not full dexterity, at least my muscles will be long. So um, I certainly think that Botox has been good for my hand and my forearm and wrist. And I've had it cast, so I've actually had it sort of cast right back. And even though I can't feel it, I can feel pain. So that was fairly hardcore, but worth it. I think it helps with pain. It helps to not, shorten those muscles. So I think Botox is good.
Very nice, very nice. Now,
Mm.
have you had any side effects like headaches or migraines from it?
No, and I suffer from headaches and migraines, so I was a bit worried because I hate headaches and migraines anyway. Not
Yeah,
that I had it pre-stroke, but you always sort of worry what is it affecting in my brain kind of thing. But
right, right.
yeah, I didn't have any side effects. No.
Yeah, because I was when we moved to Missouri, uh,
Mm.
one of the neurologists suggested that I get Botox. So I got the Botox in my leg, and they gave me gnarly migraines. So I was like, nah, I think I'm
Oh,
good.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, that sucks.
yeah, it gave me gnarly migraines, and I was like, I'm good. So I stopped it. But
Mm.
I guess it's one of the side effects. So, but yeah, but
Yeah.
but I've heard it worked for many people. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think you got to try it out. It's just like
oh yeah,
therapy and stuff. You just got to give it a go, and if it suits you, then go with it, and if it
yeah.
doesn't, well then do something else.
Hundred,
Yeah,
100%. And like you said too,
yeah,
it's it's keeping your spasticity, your tendons and your
mm,
muscles.
yep,
It's
yep,
keeping them fresh.
yeah,
So once
yep,
the sensation and the feeling does
mm,
come back,
yep,
because it's all about the neurons
yep.
connecting again. And once that does come back, you're not going to have to worry about, having to work on your wrist coming back and all that jazz.
That's right.
You know what
Yep,
I mean? So good on you
yeah,
for getting that done.
yeah, yeah. I've had it a few times now, so probably about 4 or 5, I'd say. So yeah, it's
And
worked well for me.
yeah, for sure. And so, a lot of needles freak a lot of people out, but so how long is the needle that they stick in your arm?
Yeah, it's pretty big, and they use an ultrasound so that they can see the muscles, and you can sort of see. So I actually watched the ultrasound, and you can see the needle going in, and she sort of digs it around on the muscles, and it's kind of like that'd be really gross if I could feel it.
Right.
So it's kind of, I think the first time I got it done, I had like 8 injections, and by the 8, I was sort of starting to feel a little bit queasy because I could sort of feel the digging around, and it was sort of like, that's kind of gross. But yeah, you kind again, it's that, okay, well, this works, so you've got to go through the hardcore stuff to be able to get to the other side, kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
we, we might have just scared a whole bunch of people away from
Yeah.
that.
Just don't look at the needle. Just don't look at the needle, and it's fine.
Right. That's so funny. Now,
Yeah.
so who is Saran after everything is all said and done? After you got home from therapy and whatnot, how did life change for you? Like right when you got home.
Wow. It was big. It was I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew that I'd changed massively. I knew that life was never going to be the same as it was. And I found that I actually didn't really know my family because I was working so much before stroke. We call it BS. It's kind of like it was like, okay, now I'm actually home because I really wasn't. But my kids were 3, 8, and 10, and they have helped me through it as much as well as my partner. And I found that, in some ways, I think the stroke was the only thing that was going to change the path that I was going on, and because I was just going like a bullet train, and it wasn't in a good way. It wasn't going in the right direction. So I think, it kind of hit me to stop me and go, right, nothing else is going to do it. I wish it had been a lesson that was a little bit less severe, but, in some ways, I think it had to be that severe for
Yeah.
me to actually sort of wake up and go, hang on, this is actually the life that I want to have. At the time, of course, it wasn't the life that I wanted. To suddenly become dependent and feel like I was old and disabled, it was rough. But 7 years post stroke has taught me a lot of things, and taught me sort of really the person that I want to be, and what I want to do. So, but back then it was hard.
It was
It
for
was a
sure.
big smack in the face. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because at that time you were how old? Saran? Again,
I was 37.
37.
So, yep, I was fairly successful in my job. I was traveling to New Zealand once a month for a week at a time. So, and I was building up a customer base for a software company that I worked for. I was a business manager of the whole lot. So, yeah, it was suddenly I was dependent. I was disabled. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, drive anywhere. I couldn't just do. I couldn't just
Right.
be. Yeah. So it was
So
a.
so you essentially own New Zealand, and then you had to sell
Yeah. Yeah. I did. And yeah, it was hard. I tried to keep working after the stroke. I got them to bring in my computer, and I wanted to sort of be online with everyone. But as soon as I got in front of the computer, basically, probably half an hour, I'd then go to sleep, and I was exhausted. The idea, like things, just looking at the fatigue was massive. So
hmm
yeah,
Yeah,
mm,
that's definitely something that we encounter, and
yeah,
it's just even you said 7 years post stroke now, right?
yeah,
And that's something that you still suffer from. I'd
yeah,
imagine, right? The
yeah,
fatigue.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I remember speaking to a pain specialist, and he basically said, you have fatigue. And I'm like, well, when's that going to go? And he's like, no, you have fatigue. I'm like, right. And he said, you need to work out how to control it before you get old, when when you actually do get tired. He wasn't a very positive doctor, mind you, but he did sort of help me face the fact that I was going to have fatigue, and I had to sort of work out how to live my life around it. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I have mostly.
Yeah, good to go. I had one of your fellow Aussies on here, Emma, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and she said what she does is she takes $20 a day, and at the beginning of her, it was suggested by one of her physical therapists, and
yeah,
she uh, the $20 is what she uses to spend for the day. So
okay,
obviously when she first started, the physical therapy would be like $19, right? Because,
yep,
at that time, it's very demanding of your
yep,
of of your time, and of your
yep,
physical ability. So now she still uses it to this day. And so, the physical therapy would be like $10 now. Walking your dog would be like $2.
yep.
And, once the money's all spent, she's done for the day.
That's
Which,
awesome. That
yeah,
is such a cool idea.
yeah, which I thought was brilliant, right? So, so for instance, like today, doing the coffee club that we were in earlier today on
Yep,
this
yep,
network, and then doing the Determined show today. That sounds
yep,
like $20 to me, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna have to tell my wife that I'm all
That
cashed
you're
out.
done. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
I don't think it works that way with 4 kids.
No,
But yeah,
no.
yeah. I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that method was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, because it sort of keeps it front of mind that you've got a certain amount of energy, and you can see when it's actually decreasing and when you're done. That's really good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm, mm,
Now, so that was when you first got out of, the hospital. You're trying to
yeah.
you said you're trying to go back to work and whatnot.
Yep. Yep.
Didn't quite pan out.
No.
Now, yeah, it didn't. And then, so what happened after that?
I just focused on myself, I suppose, getting better. I did sort of try and work, and I was lucky enough to have a really good friend who had me working in their business. But at the pace that I could work at, so I would, say do 2 hours a week, and then sort of slowly, sort of gradually built it up. But and it was contracts, it was fine. But yeah, so I sort of was able to still keep that work life for me, because that was sort of in some ways my identity.
Right,
Losing the work would have been losing completely, and I think I still had to hold on to that, as well as getting myself better. So yeah, so that sort of worked well. But yeah, it was just working on just therapy and finding the right people, which was hard, because you didn't actually have anyone helping guide the way. You'd sort of have to do a bit of suck it and see, and this therapist would not be any good, or this therapist was great. But
right.
you know, yeah, it was finding that real perfect match for therapy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then the like you said, you find some that are good, find some that are great,
mm,
but even the good ones, they don't go home with you, right?
no, no,
Yeah.
that's right.
So you
Mm,
kind of have to find your balance at home too. Try to
yeah,
figure out how to maneuver and get things done
mm,
at home too.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's one aspect that I find kind of unique about about us as survivors, because there's so many things that we can do one-handed,
oh
that
yeah,
that a normal person, can do
yeah,
two-handed. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, the dexterity that you learn is quite amazing.
right, the one, yeah, one-handed, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah, yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
And and so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But
yeah.
what? So you're talking on at the time, I think you said 3, 8, and 10, right? Were your
That's
kids?
right. Yep.
Yeah, 3, 8, and 10.
Yeah.
So obviously the 3-year-old, wasn't. But your 8 and your 10-year-old, how much were they a factor in helping once you got home from the hospital?
Look, my family, my partner, and especially, he didn't miss a beat. Um, he's he's such a unique individual. He's always happy. He's always childish, and most times he's actually pretty annoying. But he, say for example, the day after the stroke was Hayden's 10th birthday, and he made sure that David stayed with me in hospital. But then the next morning, he made sure he left hospital by about 5 o'clock in the morning so that he could be at home for when Hayden woke up, and he could do the normal present sort of thing, which was
Yeah,
usually on our bed. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah, and the kids sort of kept on going to school, but then they'd come and see me, in therapy and stuff, and they were able to ask any questions. They were a bit scared, obviously, when they first came into the hospital, and I looked a bit like death and couldn't really move and was, tired by the time they came or whatever. Um, but they are just we're just one, you know, we're just one unit. They're so helpful. They're so they've learned empathy,
hmm,
and the fact that okay, well, mum needs help,
right,
and that's just how it is. Not like, oh God, we've got to help mum. It's no,
right,
this is what families do.
hmm,
Mum can't now do this and that, and we help her with that. But as long as one person gets things done, I started then picking the kids up and dropping them off after I was able to get a license, get my license back. But it was just, yeah, they all sort of picked up the ball and ran with it, and it just is, it's
yeah,
great.
yeah. That's awesome. Because
Mm.
I had my stroke when I was 15. My sister
Yeah.
was 13. My
Wow.
my two little brothers were 97, 3, 4 and 6. So my sister essentially had to pick up the mother role. You know what
Yep.
I mean? And take care of my
Yep.
little brothers, so
Yep.
that kind of like made me think that, your two little boys, essentially, they grew up pretty fast, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I have two girls and a boy, but yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. Well,
they did.
the little one is the girl, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
3-year-old, the
Yeah.
3-year-old was the girl, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So your two boys, they essentially had to grow up pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So my sister, your boys are probably going to be fantastic young men. And then,
Yeah.
so my sister is actually a fantastic mother because
Yeah.
at that time,
Yeah.
she had to pick up the mother role and take care of my two little
Mm.
brothers,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
now uh, your kids are, how you said 7 years ago. So now your kids are 17,
Yeah. So yeah,
15, and 10.
Emma's 11, Catherine's 15, and Hayden's 17. Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah. And now the 10 year
11-year
old
old.
or the 11-year
Yeah.
old is now picking
She's
up.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, now she's growing up pretty fast now too, right?
She has. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. 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 No,
So
they're great. They're going to be great parents. I
exactly.
mean, they're great friends as well.
Yeah.
Very caring, very, they haven't grown up in that little kid bubble where it's just sort of
Right.
them and only them, and their parents are just sort of, doing everything around them. They've learnt how to be responsible
Yep.
and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
At a young age,
mm,
and
yeah,
that gives them such great life skills at such an early
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I think initially I felt really guilty. I remember saying to one of the parents, I feel as though they're going to grow up and sort of say, I didn't have a childhood because I had to look after my mum, and she actually, her mother had had a stroke when she was younger, and she said, you know what? She said, I can see your children are so conscious of their surroundings and so caring that no, they're not going to. Yeah, okay, their lives are different to probably everyone else's, but it's not in a bad way,
mhm,
and they have grown up very happy,
yeah,
and they haven't missed out on anything.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't.
mm,
I didn't even. That didn't even cross my mind at all. Yeah, the
mm,
only thing that I thought about was, they're gonna grow up to be outstanding adults and
yeah,
outstanding parents.
yeah, yeah.
And
Because what are your brothers like?
oh, they're my all my siblings are outstanding adults.
Yeah.
One's a sheriff and one's
Oh
a
wow.
teacher. One's a teacher, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
And
So
yeah,
servicing the community kind of thing, serving
exactly.
the community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's
and
great.
my sister just finished. She well with the whole Rona thing. She
Yeah.
just finished getting her. She's always had a passion for beauty and makeup and all that stuff.
Oh,
So she just got her license, and she finally followed her dream and her passion, and she just got it. So kudos
that's
to her.
great.
Yeah, kudos.
Yeah. Good on her. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah. So proud of her for that. Now,
Hmm.
so you had your stroke and all that jazz, and you went through everything that you went through. Now
Yep.
you are servicing the stroke community, correct?
I am. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Sort of.
and
Sorry. Go on.
you want to elaborate on how exactly you're doing that, or how
Sure.
it came about? Uh,
Yeah.
Actually, let's not elaborate on how you're doing that. Let's elaborate. Let's talk about what made you think that you wanted to go in that direction.
Okay. So there's one lady at the university, and her name's Susan Hillier. Amazing. She's physio trained, but she's like a researcher. She's interested in neuro. She's an amazing woman. Anyway, I have been dealing with her with a clinical trial, this video software, and we would just be talking and sort of saying, God, she actually said, we should clone you. And I'm like, I don't think that would be a good idea. But she sort of said, no, she said, the thing is, you're so proactive in your own therapy, and a lot of people need that kind of guidance. I didn't ever take no for an answer. I just kept pushing people, and especially if they were helping me with my therapy, I would just keep on at them and keep them, with me and that kind of thing. And because I think didn't, I wasn't given anything, coming out of the hospital or even rehab. They kind of gave me a couple of names of therapists, but I didn't know anything about them. And I think, you know, I probably wouldn't have done it any other way, but I know that there was a lot of people who they feel isolated, and they don't know where to go. And I think, it sort of got to the point where Susan and I basically sort of said, why don't we start a group, a young stroke support group? So it's now called Young Enabled Stroke Success South Australia, where what we're trying to do is within the community, find obviously other stroke survivors and sort of say, look, what do you want to do in life? So if you want to go, so I sort of looked at it as in, I want to go and do yoga. I can't do downward dog, for example, which is, I always sort of think about it, it's just hilarious anyway. But obviously, without one arm and not a lot of balance, it just would not end well. And so, I spoke to a therapist and she sort of said, well, you use a chair and just kind of, on your knees lean over. Oh, okay. That doesn't seem half as bad. Um, and so we sort of thought if we can put together these kind of things so that stroke survivors could easily work out what customizations they need to do, then they could go to their own class and not have to be not have the spotlight on them, not have to kind of make it look like they need all of this help. They could actually
Right.
go to their own sort of sessions and, and know what they could do and not feel, they could actually sort of feel as normal as possible,
Mm-hmm.
going to their own sessions. So yeah, so that's sort of what we're trying to do in the community in South Australia, but also sort of give guidance on things such as getting therapy, getting funding, and all that kind of stuff. So we just sort of want to make people's lives or that stroke journey easier.
Nice, nice. I like it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so you also are like, can you kind of like research who like the good therapists are, and then
yeah,
connect them with
yeah.
good
That's right.
therapists and recommend the
Yeah,
therapy.
dependent. So I'll speak to people and they'll sort of be telling me what their deficits or needs are, and based on the fact that I've probably nagged as many people in South Australia as I could, I can easily sort of say, well, why don't we try this, or even I'll make a phone call to someone who could lead me in the right way, in the right direction. So yeah, so and we want to sort of build up a database of these therapists and researchers and clinicians and that kind of thing, so that if people are looking for specific things, then it's sort of not only there's the name of the person, but also perhaps what they specialize in, what kind of thing they do, what kind of part of the body that they're most specialized in, and that kind of thing, just to make it easier so they don't just have a name of a therapist and kind of go, okay, well, I don't know what they're going to do, and not waste money or time. So, yeah.
Very good, very good.
Mm,
Excuse me. And so, one thing that going back to our interview a little bit, um,
mm,
so when you said that you were looking for a private therapy session,
yeah.
now, because when I've had a few Australian guests,
Mm,
and from what I understand through the medical system that you guys have there, they treat you guys fairly well. So like they'll keep you guys in for like a
yeah.
year, until you're better. So
Yeah.
is a private one like something that you pay for, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. You pay for it. You've got private health, and so private health pay for a certain amount, and then you pay the difference, or you can get NDIS funding, and the government will help, like, will pay for your therapy. So, yeah, we've got a pretty good system here in Australia.
I see.
Yeah,
I see. Now, not to, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to.
that's okay.
Now, was that just because, because it seems like you're pretty knowledgeable with the therapy and whatnot. So was that just because you wanted just a certain rehab place, or?
No, I think I had specific goals. So, and from that, I would find that the different therapists and sort of say, this is what I want. And, if they actually were smart and was doing therapy for the patient, not based on their, like, so I speak at uni workshops and would say to students, if you're going into the physiotherapy or OT, you're learning all of the theory now, but when you actually work in that environment, see the patient for what their goals are, and then use your experience and knowledge based on that. Don't go in with your knowledge and experience and try and fit them into that kind of therapy, because that certainly doesn't work for me.
Right.
I need the person to be intelligent and to be able to think outside the square, because really each person who's had a stroke are different and have different needs, have different perhaps energy levels and goals and what they want to
Right.
achieve. So yeah, they need to hear what they want and really listen and be able to help that way. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, they're definitely not kind of like a robotic system, right? Fitting the
No,
mold.
that's right.
Yeah,
Mm,
I don't know if you've
yeah,
seen any of my shows with Dr. Olivo on them.
yeah, I
He's
have.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's my neurologist, and when
Oh,
you're
that's cool. Yeah,
yeah, when you're speaking on that, it kind of reminded me of him because he kind of like breaks the mold of what
yeah, yeah,
what a standard neurologist kind of
yeah,
like how a standard doctor is kind of like, no, you have this because the book says
yeah.
this type
Yep, that's
thing.
right. Yep,
You know what I mean? Yeah.
yep, I do.
So he obviously knows what he's talking about,
Yeah,
but he
yep,
listens to what you're talking about.
that's right.
Then he uses his knowledge to diagnose what's going on. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Yes,
Instead of like, okay, reading the chart,
telling
nope,
you. Yeah,
you got this. You know what I mean?
yep,
And
yep,
that what you were talking about kind of reminded me
yeah,
of Dr. Levo.
yep, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's great.
yeah. So now, do you only operate in you said Southern Australia?
South Australia. We do at the moment, yeah. We're trying to. I mean, there is a national young stroke project from the Stroke Foundation, which is a fantastic project that they're trying to do, or they are doing, and that's sort of from a national basis. But South Australia, there really hasn't been a big sort of support for young stroke. So we are working locally to try and sort of get a community that's so that people in South Australia can feel supported and know that there's something that they can go to. There's a lot of national groups such as Genius, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a really good sort of base, that is international. I think actually, well, it
Mm-hmm.
is because you're
Yeah.
involved in it.
Right.
And they're really good, but there's a lot of things that are already quite well developed in the eastern states, and that's Victoria and New South Wales. So they're sort of the bigger states. South Australia is kind of the next one, but it's quite a lot smaller. So yeah, we don't have as big a network of therapists, researchers, clinicians, etc. So yeah, so for now, after that long convoluted answer, for now it is local. Yeah,
Yeah. So it sounds like what needs to happen is you guys need to just connect up, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
So
hope that we can sort of build a bit of a mold so that we could potentially use that then nationally, or maybe other states could do the same sort of thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but this is what South Australia needs at the moment. So yeah,
yeah, for sure. So
mm,
and and I agree 100% with what you're saying.
mm,
It's exactly what South Australia needs.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you have any final concluding thoughts for for our community?
I think that I I was never actually told, which was good, that I couldn't improve. I think I probably would have bashed them anyway. But I think I'm willing to keep on trying to improve myself physically, mentally, um, until I can't improve anymore, and I will keep going, however big or small my progression is. And I think sometimes you hit lows, but sometimes that's good to actually sort of feel it, because you sort of come out of it feeling better. After you sort of have to feel the low to be able to get back up.
Bounce back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, just keep on going, and you utilize the people and the networks around you, because you're not alone. Yeah, I think that's probably what I can give as the
I
last sort of.
I second what Saran is saying. You know, there is no such thing as plateauing.
No,
No such
no,
thing.
that's right.
None.
Yeah.
So whatsoever. You know, you
Mm,
might be doing your therapy, and you might see um, your progress start to do one of these numbers, but
mm,
that's only because your progress is becoming smaller. You know,
mm,
I attribute that to I compare it to weight loss. You know,
yeah,
when you go on a diet, you know, you lose a whole bunch of weight, and
yeah,
then you don't start to see yourself losing weight until you
mm,
step on a scale or you see someone that you haven't seen in a while, and then
yeah,
they're like, "Dang, Saran, you look like you lost so much weight,"
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
But it's because the progression is so small, and you see yourself every day. You don't see it,
yeah.
but it's still there.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
But my concluding thoughts. That was just on top of what you were saying. But my concluding thoughts for everyone is circling back to what Saran was saying about her kids stepping up to the plate and helping. You know, I see it in the community a lot, and it kind of breaks my heart that people don't step up to the plate, but
Mm,
there are a lot that do, and family is so important. There are a lot of people that have family members that are for them, and
yeah.
we have when we have our strokes, sometimes we're angry about it, but the people that are there for us, we can't take that anger out on them.
Mm,
You know what
no.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so family is so important. And with that being said, I conclude all my shows with a prayer. Saran, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on and sharing your testimony. It was fantastic. I loved it. I can't wait to see you in the next coffee club next Thursday
Definitely.
on
Yep.
Genius Network.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and say our prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing Saran into my life so that we cross paths and she can come on to the Determined Show and share her testimony with our community to bring hope and inspiration into their lives, knowing that they too can pick up where they left off and bring that hope and inspiration into their lives. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, Saran. Thank you.